علمي من الرحمن ذي الآلاء بالله حزت الفضل لا بدهائي كيف الوصول إلى مدارج شكره نثني عليه وليس حول ثنائي.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another new series of the philosophy of the teachings of Islam, a program in which we shall be reviewing the masterpiece of the promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam. It deals with the 5 objectives, call them themes, that were set by the moderators of the conference. This very same book has been published in several languages in different countries with a lot of care and faithfulness to the original contexts. Our dear viewers, my name is Kadeku Mumin Kasim. Join me this episode as we shall be reviewing and discussing the background of the book. I'll be helped by Sheikh Ramadan Kabagambe and Hafiz Sahib, and we shall be also joined by Sheikh Rashid Ahmed Navid, inshallah. Sheikh Ramadan Kabagambe.
Yes, please.
This book was written and presented at the conference. May you tell us how the conference arose?
Yeah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم وعلى عبده المسيح الموعود عليه الصلاة والسلام. I thank you for the question. The conference that we are talking about that actually resulted into this book, this epoch-making book, The Philosophy of the Teachings of Islam, resulted in a series of things. For example, a man called Shugan Chandra Sahib, a Hindu, decided to reform some of the bad ways that were taking root in the Hindu religion. And not only that, of course, we see there were a lot of disputes within not only his faith, Hinduism, but many other faiths. Take an example within Islam, within Christianity, and many other faiths. So he thought by bringing together preachers and learned personnel in their respective religions, he could be able to reform not only his faith of Hinduism, but he would actually add something to the reformation of other faiths. So he decided to come up with this idea of gathering people and inviting representatives from different faiths so that they could come and let people know of the good points, of the beauties and verities within their religions. And that is how this conference started. And let me also mention that the very first conference of this type happened in 1894 in a place called Ajmer. You see, it shows that there was already that will of reforming the world by this gentleman, and of course having been supported by many other people. So that is basically the way how this conference was being started and being organized.
Sheikh Saab, you've told us that the conference was started, or the idea of the conference was brought by a Hinduism.
Yeah.
Why in all people could it have been a Hinduism?
Yeah, you see, everything should start from somewhere. There should be a starting point. And there should be somebody to start something. If you wait for everybody to start, you may end up not starting any idea. So there should be somebody to start anything. So, and remember, at that point in time, the Indian subcontinent was full of various faiths and religions. So, and predominantly, there was that belief of Hinduism, dominating. And that explains why it was a Hindu that started this idea of a conference. Because, like I told you, India was dominated, and by the way, up to now, it's still dominated by Hinduism, and many of them are Hindus. So I think that could explain why it was a Hindu that started the idea. But of course, it was a brilliant idea that was even taken up by the promised Messiah ﷺ himself. So something could start small, and of course, having been supported by many other good and willing people like the promised Messiah ﷺ, it took up a different shape, and it became a very renowned conference that could actually take place in a different view, in a different form, in Lahore.
We've just seen how this conference came about. Now, as I've told you earlier, on air we have Hafiz Sabba Sahib. Hafiz Sabba, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May you please tell us some of the objectives of this conference?
Thank you very much, host. Some of the objectives of this great religious conference were: one, to set free the religious conflicts between men or worshippers. And the moderators came up with some objectives, or some, we might say, topics or themes on which the great speakers of this great religious conference were to focus on. Namely, number one of them was, a speaker was to talk about the state of man physically, morally, and spiritually. Number two was the state of man after death. And number three was the practical ordinance of man's operation in this life and the hereafter. And number four was sources of divine knowledge. So each and every speaker from different faith was to focus on these main themes, to set the followers of different faith to observe, assess, and acknowledge the presentation of different faith, so that they can freely choose which faith to go with. I hope this satisfies your quest.
That has been his submission, and it has been wonderful about the objectives of the conference. Our dear viewers, having seen how the conference arises, and having seen the objectives as to why did this conference, why was the conference set by the moderators? Many people were called upon And as usual, and as we know, you cannot just come into a conference where you've not been called. Sheikh Sahib, we are talking about promised Messiah, alayhi salatu wasalam, and we are talking about his masterpiece, that is Islami Usul Ki philosophy, the teaching, the philosophy of the teachings of Islam. May you briefly tell us how he was invited to the conference and what was his response?
Yes, let it be clear that by that time, by 1894, 1895, Promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad al-Qadian, had already claimed to be the Promised Messiah and Imam Mahdi. Remember, he did so. He started Jamaat Ahmadiyya in 1889. So like 5 or 6 years later, this great conference was to be held. You see, what did he come to do? Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam came to revive Islam. And he was looking for those kind of opportunities where he could explain to the people the beautiful teachings of Islam, since it was the reason why he came and Allah sent him to this world. So when this gentleman was coming up with the idea, and Masih Maud alayhi salam was already in pole position to represent Islam, because he had already made his name known to everybody that he was the champion of Islam and he was an ardent defender of Islam. So there was no any other person that could represent Islam apart from Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam. And he was rightly invited, and he took up the chance, because that was the opportunity that he was waiting for, and Allah did it for him. So he readily accepted, and he indeed presented his essay and his writing, and it was widely accepted by the audience. And not only that, the news reporters that were there, they were amazed by that masterpiece of work that he came up with. And like I said, he readily accepted, and Allah the Almighty already told him, by the way, that before he presented that essay, that his work was to be supreme. His work was to win other works that were to be presented in the conference. So we see that although he did not take part himself, he did not, participate in the conference himself, but his essay that was read out by his follower, a person called Maulvi Abdul Karim Sahib Sialkoti was the one who read his essay to the audience, and it was widely accepted, and everybody came up with a unanimous decision, with a unanimous statement that his essay was the best among all the essays that were presented and read to the audience in that same conference.
Jazakallah, Sheikh Sahib. Our dear viewers, on a phone call, I have Sheikh Rashid Ahmed Navid. Sheikh Rashid Ahmed Navid, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sheikh Rashid, we have seen Promised Messiah alayhi salatu wasalam being invited to the conference. What are some of the incidents that occurred as he was writing this book?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To my colleagues on the panel and all the viewers of MT Africa, I am very grateful that you have given me this opportunity to say something about the great work or the excellent piece which was presented by the Promised Messiah ﷺ for the truth of Islam. That is the philosophy of the teachings of Islam. His marvelous intellectual work In fact, all the books which the Promised Messiah ﷺ wrote, most of them, in fact all of them, he wrote with the special support from Allah the Almighty, with divine guidance from Allah the Almighty. Although at that time the situation was not as you can say convenient as it is today, so there were difficulties. Even one of his son, Hazrat Mirza Bashir Ahmad Sahib, even has narrated that there was used to be a small lamp which he used to write, which he used when he was writing, sometimes at night, and even other difficulties he faced and the challenges at that time. Then obviously when we come to this book of the Promised Messiah ﷺ, the philosophy of the teachings of Islam, this also, by own words of the Promised Messiah ﷺ, he said that this was not result of an ordinary human effort. And even he mentioned it that it was a sign from among the signs of God, written with his special support. So you can understand from this statement of the Promised Messiah ﷺ, that even this book, which the Promised Messiah, or the paper which was read out and written by the Promised Messiah ﷺ, was written with the support of Allah the Almighty. And in fact, the Promised Messiah ﷺ even have quoted one of his vision. He said that I saw in a vision, out of the unseen, a hand was laid on my mansion, and by the touch of that hand, a shining light emerged from the mansion and spread in all directions. It also illuminated my hands. Thereupon, someone who was standing by me proclaimed in a loud voice, Allahu Akbar Kharibat Khaybar, that God is great, Khaybar has fallen. So the Promised Messiah ﷺ goes on and says that the interpretation is that by mansion is meant my heart, on which the heavenly light of the varieties of the Holy Quran is descending. That means when he was writing this book and he saw that vision, obviously there were, you can say, the heavenly light was there to guide him, or some of the things as if they were descending the truths of Holy Quran on him while he was writing, on his heart while he was writing that book. And then Promised Messiah ﷺ says that by Khaybar are meant all the perverted religions which are afflicted with paganism and falsehood. So that means whatever the Promised Messiah ﷺ was writing with the divine help, and was writing to, you can say, prove the superiority of the religion of Islam over all other religions. Then, not only that, specifically about this paper or about this book, when the Promised Messiah ﷺ was writing, another revelation also he revealed from Allah the Almighty, and the words were that Mazmoon Bala Raha. That means that your paper or your essay has become superior, or has been declared as supreme over all other papers. So even mentioning that, the Promised Messiah ﷺ says that God the All-Knowing has revealed to me that my paper will be declared supreme over all other papers. And in fact, the Promised Messiah ﷺ, after receiving that revelation, he even published an announcement on 21st December 1896, where he published these, you can say, the revelations which were revealed to him by Allah the Almighty. And after mentioning this, what was revealed to him, he says that it is full of the light of truth, wisdom, and understanding, which will put to shame all other parties, provided they attend the conference and listen to it from beginning to the end. They will not be able to match these qualities from their scriptures, whether they are Christians or Aryas or those of Sanatan Dharam or any others, because God Almighty has determined that the glory of His book shall be manifested on that day. He goes on to say, I have been informed that after this essay is distributed widely, the falsehood of the false doctrines would be exposed and the truthfulness of the Holy Quran would be manifested until the time that it becomes all comprehensive. So, after receiving that revelation which I mentioned earlier, Mazmoon Balaraha, he published that announcement at least 1 week before that conference, and he published that it is Allah the Almighty who has told me that this paper will be declared as the supreme over all other, and then at the same time that this will prove the victory of Islam. And we shall see, in fact, in the incidents which happened after, which proved that really, as it was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ about the victory of Islam, in fact, that paper really proved it to be one of the signs of Allah the Almighty and the truth of Islam.
Thank you a lot, Sheikh Rashid Ahmed Navid, for your submission and for your contribution to our program. Remember, we are still continuing with the background of the book Islami Usul Ki Philosophy, that is, the philosophy of the teachings of Islam. Sheikh Sahib,
No.
may you tell us, at the time as this book or the writing of the Promised Messiah was presented, how was the audience and what was the reactions from the audience?
Yes, like I said, people got interested in the book. You see, every speaker was to be given 2 hours to present his writing. But it happened that when Masih Maud's book was read, it took more than 2 hours, and they added 2 more hours. You know, everybody was requesting this book should be read. All the participants accepted and requested the organizers that the book should be allotted more time. And to the extent, by the way, that some of the speakers donated their own time to the book of the Masih Maud to be read. A man called Maulvi Abu Yusuf donated his own time because he was to speak next. He gave his own time to the work of the Promised Messiah to be read. And the day was to be complete when not even the answer for the first question was given. You know, like I said, there were 5 questions that were to be answered. But 2 hours elapsed. They added 2 more hours. Even the time of that gentleman that was to speak next was given. But still, the answer to even one question was not complete. So unanimously, everybody accepted that even the next day, this book should should be presented again. Not again, of course, should start from where they stopped to maybe where it will end. But yet still, that next day, they accepted, they gave the time to the Promised Messiah's book to be read, but yet still, it was not complete. So it tells you that people got interested and they were always desirous to hear what comes next and what would be read next. So people were interested. And by the way, let me also say this, that the audience within the time of other speakers people were few, but whenever the work of the Promised Messiah was being read, according to the news reporters of that day, they said the audience ranged from 7,000 to 8,000. You can see how people got interested in listening to that work. And there were many, dignitaries that were in the audience. Very many historians, great preachers of different faiths. They were also interested, and they always, asked for more time to be given to the Promised Messiah. And people were listening with rapt attention without anybody talking to each other. There were no murmurings, no talkings. They were just listening to the work. That tells you how great the work was. So that is the impact that it created at that same time, and that, by the way, that impact can be felt even today. Take that book and give it to any person to read. You will be amazed with what that gentleman or that lady will tell you.
Our viewers, I see time is never with us. However, I've enjoyed what Sheikh Sahib has told us, and it was just due to time. But we would wish to continue from there. Our dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
علمي من الرحمن ذي الآلاء بالله حسن الفضل لا بدهاء كيف الوصول إلى مدارج شكره نثني عليه وليس حول ثناء